Hi, my name's Angela Fox, and I've been asked to discuss how I became a ADR practitioner, especially those who are not that far removed from law school and are looking into maybe figure out what alternative ways could you use ADR. I will have to say, if someone asks me how I became an ADR, I will simply tell them I didn't find ADR, it found me. And what I mean by that is I look back as a young woman in my teens, and I was one of the only fully integrated students with a severe disability. I have complete lower paralysis. I was born with it. In a very small town of Indiana of about 500 high school students. And needless to say, I ran into a lot of hurdles, a lot of obstacles, and had to use a lot of my advocacy for myself, anywhere from how do I get transportation to the movies if I want to hang out with my girlfriends. If I get to the movie, will there be handicapped seating? Which may sound, that maybe that's not something you would face, even in the 80s, but it was when you're in a small town of the Midwest, and also because the ADA was not founded until the mid 1990, and clearly I was born before that. So I used a lot of skills, but I didn't know what ADR was. I never even heard of it. I probably would have laughed at that time. I wanted something a little bit more financially stable. I was very level-headed and still am. And so I went into political science and international studies because I thought, hey, I was good at resolving difficult situations in a unique way. And I thought, why not take that skill set and something that I thought I was pretty good at an international global level through diplomacy. But as I went into international political science, I realized that I probably need to get a law degree to fall back on. Even when I went to law school at Thomas M. Cooley Law School in Lansing, Michigan, I knew at that time I was not going to become a lawyer and use my law degree in a traditional sense. I had no intention of necessarily being a law firm. Wasn't ruling it out, but again, I was still focusing on doing something internationally. And I was absolutely right. Of course, I didn't know anything about ADR. That would literally fall into a non-traditional field, ADR. Until I went to my first semester and the school needed some assistance in regards to the American Bar Association client counseling competition. They were hosting a regional competition, and I said, sure, I can role play. It'll be fun. I didn't realize how difficult it was and what a unique skill set you need. And I learned all about what this whole ADR thing was, and I really liked it. And I thought, hey, I think this might be something I'd be interested. I quickly found out they were doing the ABA negotiation competition, and then they were asking for tryouts to be on the school team, negotiation team, and I thought, very arrogantly, I suppose, hey, I let me try that. Let me see if I can get on the team. And believe it or not, as a 1L, I became on the negotiation team for my school, and in fact, got a perfect score. So at that time, I was absolutely hooked in ADR, and I wanted to be full-blown members of the student-run ADR board organization, and quickly advocated the use of ADR along my classmates who so I was insane. A lot of them wanted to do the traditional law firm, especially doing moot court, and I always joked with them. I said, hey, you can keep the glory, people can know your name, but I'll take the money. And they laughed and they scoffed. And if you're here wanting to do ADR, you know that most cases get settled, and the quicker you get settled, the more money you make because there's less costs associated. And oftentimes you may get a resolution that legally you could not get in the courtroom. So everybody's winner, and everybody gets paid a lot better. And I knew that early on. So I pursued that. I took as many ADR classes as I could to the point that all I needed was one additional class, a moot court class, and I graduated with a litigation concentration. And of course, I couldn't even do that in the traditional sense. I petitioned a school to take a international moot court tribunal course instead of the criminal moot court and use my negotiation skills right then. And the president of the university said, sure, it's the same skill set. Learning about international law, but you do have to use your moot court. So I took that class and I graduated litigation concentration simply because I had taken so many ADR classes. Um, Once I graduated, I got involved in the federal disability internship program called the Workforce Recruitment Program, WRP, and a Department of Labor in DC needed somebody to write the ADR policy for the internal EEO complaints, complaints of discrimination of employees that work at Department of Labor, and they didn't have a policy. It's part of the EEO process, but they really didn't have a policy to say this is how we're going to use ADR. And of course, I jumped at that opportunity. I moved out to DC, did a 1 year lease at an apartment, even though it was a 3 month internship, and decided to stay and took the Maryland bar and passed. While I was at Department of Labor, while I was doing ADR, I didn't just focus on ADR. I also took the opportunity to learn about the EEO complaint process. And I highly encourage you that even if you're going into ADR, and again, you don't have to have a law degree. I don't believe in that. It is a skill set that you need to learn, that you will not get all the skill set that you need in law school. Law school requires you to think differently. So please do not limit yourself, even if you are a lawyer. But even if you don't limit yourself and you're learning additional skill set, you also really need to learn other things that maybe not be directly related to ADR, because you do need to have some kind of substantive education that can help you find a niche. And that's what I found. I ran to EEO, learned the complaint process, and quickly became a EEO complaint manager in the federal sector because I had ADR skills and I had already written one ADR policy. And so I was able to use mediate, become a certified mediator, and depending on what agency I was at, one agency, they had the internal ADR program where I could mediate EEO complaints, not within the particular component of that agency, but maybe one of the sister offices, so to speak. And then once I got into that, I quickly got into the federal sector ADR program, which is called the Share Neutrals program. It's governed by the Department of Health and Human Services, and that way I was able to mediate not just EEO complaint, but any conflict resolution that a particular agency needed a mediator. So if I was at Department of Treasury, I could go and mediate at the Department of State, and they may have some team building exercises that are needed, or they may have a big powwow with the union and they needed a neutral facilitator. And so they will ask the Share Neutrals program, and then HHS will ask for volunteers. So I continue to do that. I enjoy it tremendously. But one thing I have to say is I quickly became known as a person that could help resolve any employment dispute related to disabilities. Because obviously I went through it myself, and I had that firsthand from a client perspective view. And so why I'm asking, everybody's like, how do you find that niche? Look at what you're passionate about and what you've been through. I know you've probably heard about that numerous occasions, but one thing I don't think people tell you is, especially with ADR, since we are involved in resolving problems, resolving conflict, look at what you're passionate about, but look at the what we call the ugly side. I mean, generally when we talk about things that we're passionate about, we talk about how wonderful it is, what we learn, why we do it, the good, the warm and fuzziness. But no matter what you do, there's always kind of that side that we don't necessarily think about because we don't want to, and that is the conflict. That is the roadblocks that you continue to face, but you're willing to face because you like it. And that's what makes it passionate, because you like it. But you need to look at what in fact is the roadblock, what is the conflict, what is something that maybe not be working, and figure out how you can use your ADR skills, market it yourself to the point that others will know that, hey, I can resolve this particular issue about something that I happen to be passionate about. And that is what really should be your niche. So that's the first thing I would say, is to find your niche, look at something you're passionate about, or something that you have to do in your everyday life that you like to do, and look at the ugly side and find out what needs to be improved and market yourself as a person that can resolve those issues related to that. The second aspect I would say is, even if you're not a lawyer or if you are a lawyer, I fully believe that ADR you will need to have some kind of substantive material expertise, because that will give you some legwork and also be a good way to find a niche. ADR is something that can be weaved into anything, so I do not agree that you cannot be an expert about some substantive matter, and you need to continue to grow and find other things, either other law issues, other conflict resolution, other social or economic issues, but you need to become an expert about something else and change it up every few years and continue to build and grow and be curious about the world, because ADR can be used in anything, and that's really how you can network. You can market yourself, but until you are involved in a substantive matter with the experts, with the individuals that are actually facing the conflict but may not know how to resolve it, that's really how you network. And so I would highly encourage you to find something, some other substantive matter that you could become that expert, or that you're just involved that has really nothing to do with directly with ADR. So I hope that is something that can help about a non-traditional sort of law student who went into the federal sector, who used her own personal battles through disability advocacy, and how find a particular niche through something that you're passionate about, but looking about the ugly side and also being educated in other related issues, such as the EEO, and becoming that expert in that. So I truly hope that that's something that will be beneficial, and feel free to look me up. Thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.